Hey everyone, I'm doing my John Maxwell, and for today I'm starting the topic of discernment. So when we look at discernment, we're looking at knowledge and how we use that knowledge. There's different types of knowledge. There's specialized knowledge, personal experiences, or observations. So all of us have the same amount of knowledge. Some of us have specialized knowledge. Some of us have observations we learn through life of hard knocks. Others of us go to school and we study. And others of us belong to mastermind groups or organizations where we can learn from others. And that comes through discernment. So when we are applying our knowledge in different situations, people can try to trip us up, try to trick us. The reason that Canada has a code of human rights and responsibilities is because people have forgotten how to love. They don't care. If people had at the core of their heart doing unto others and knowing what was the right thing to do, we wouldn't need contracts, we wouldn't need rights and responsibilities, we wouldn't need codes of conduct. But because people come from Babel towers, where we have different cultures, different ideas, different understandings, we have this code of conduct and we have contracts. So for example, when I work at companies, most companies, their systems work fine. And if you're offline or if a manager calls you to a meeting, the onus is on the manager to say, I've called you to a meeting and I'm tracking this. Or if your ID is not working, the onus is on the company. The company, under general rules and practices, provides you your equipment, provides you your work, provides you your IDs. It provides you saying these are the responsibilities of the job. And in turn for doing your job, you get a paycheck at the end of it. So in Canada, we are supposed to have, under the human rights code and under the employment standards, we're supposed to have accommodation for our health, for where we came from, for our religion, for our genders. There's not supposed to be discrimination. But most companies in Canada get away with it, with claiming that they have gone to the point of undue hardship, when in fact they haven't. And this happens over and over. It doesn't just happen to me. It happens to a lot of people that come into this country. And it comes to a point where it's like, you know what, why are you even bothering to ask me? It's like, oh, for these hours you were not here, where did you go? So obviously if I was not there, you would have fired me on the spot. Either your system wasn't working, or there was something wrong that day, or you called me into a meeting and then you didn't track it, and you couldn't track it, so now you're only paying me for half my hours. This is what happens to me in Canada. Or they'll say, okay, yes, we'll accommodate you and bring a doctor's note. Then you take the doctor's note in and then they'll say, oh no, the client said they're not going to give it to you. So this discrimination, it goes on over and over and over and over. People even tell me that, oh, they don't like me because they don't like my accent, because I sound like an English school teacher. But somebody else will listen to me and they'll say, you know what, I love your accent. You have such a pretty accent. And I can tell that you're not from Canada because you have a mix of an English accent and the accent of somebody from Africa. So it just depends on the person. It depends on your manager and whether they like you or not. You look at what's happening at TD. All these managers that have been there 25 years, 28 years, 50 years. How do you think they're there? Do you think they didn't know what was happening with the corruption, with all the stuff that was going on? The laugh out loud culture, but they're still there. They're still minting their money. They're still drawing in the big bucks. And people like me who are here, who are doing right by Canada, we're not getting anywhere in life. That's why the country is imploding now. It literally is imploding. Our mayor has called an emergency for our food situation because the food banks can't keep up with the amount of people coming to the food banks. If they had just made the accommodations that are necessary for people like me, people would be promoted, people would be hired, people would be having production, we would be in income-paying jobs, and people wouldn't be going to food banks. But because they choose to do the opposite, they choose to save on the short term and sacrifice the long term, this is what is happening in Canada. And what's happening in Africa? Millions are going to be getting electricity, as they are. Millions are going to be hooked up to solar panels. Millions are going to be benefiting from education and skills because companies from here are taking the jobs from here and they're putting them in Africa. And the African leaders are not playing. They're not joking. If you go and you look at the manifestos for the World Bank, for the UN, for all these global organizations, they want people who have good morals. They want people who are faith-based leaders. They want people who are doing right by society. And that's why Africa's turning. It's turning because the faith is strong in Africa. Here, oh no, you Christians, you think you know it all. We don't need you to come and preach to us. Don't pontificate to us. That's how they treat us. Oh, why should you have Good Friday off? The business needs come first. Well, can't you take it another time? They're too high and mighty. All these storms that are hitting, it's a punishment from God. And you can like it or you can lump it. I really don't care. I really don't care. Because all these storms that are hitting, all the devastation that's coming through, it's all, what did they do at the Olympics? They mocked God with that Last Supper thing that they had. Ireland is being hit. Spain is being hit. Canada is being hit. The US is being hit. People who have come into this country legally, like me, did all the right things, got our papers the right way, went and took out big loans to get our education and specialized knowledge. We're not getting the breaks. We're not getting the good paying jobs. But assholes who sit on the phone and cheat and take their phones onto the floor where they're taking the calls and all that, they're getting the jobs. God is punishing this country. God is punishing this country. Justin Trudeau was told by the UN, do not bring in this medical assistance in dying. Do not bring this in. This is not right. He did it anyway. Mercy killings. That's how Hitler started. That's how Hitler started. He was a good speaker. He was somebody that got the support of the masses. He was somebody that said, no, we want people who can work. And then when people like me who couldn't work, who needed a little bit of help, or needed a day shift, or needed something temporary to help us to get over an episodic disability that affects us when people scream at us and shout at us and yell at us, and we're taking over 200 calls a day, we were not accommodated. That's how it started. And I'm not just talking. If you don't believe me, go and talk to the Sisters of St. Joseph. Go and talk to the Sisters of Mercy. Contact the Jesuits. Ask them. Ask them how Hitler started. Then he said, oh no, if you can't work, we're going to take you and we're going to house you in these places, special places, where you can work from there in the gardens and all that. And then when they couldn't do those jobs, then they started their mercy killings. And that's how the Holocaust happened. That's how it happened. Today is my mother's birthday. It wasn't only the Jews that were killed in there. There were Catholics, there were Poles, there were other visible minority groups that got killed in there. And the same thing is happening today. There are Muslims, there are Christians, there are Hindus, who because they cannot get jobs, they cannot work, they're offering them to say, what about euthanasia? It's happening. It's happening right here in Canada. And as for me, I'm supporting Donald Trump. I'm supporting him. Because what's happening there is happening here. People are flying into Canada, having their children and flying out so that their child can have Canadian citizenship. And then when they're ready, they can come and live in Canada. It's happening. The same thing's happening in America. It's come out of a slave culture because the idea is that you cannot go back to your country. If you have two educated people coming to America or coming to Canada and they're coming here just to work with the intention of going back to Africa, and they're not interested in becoming citizens of Canada, they want to keep their Indian citizenship or their African citizenship, why should that child be born an American or a Canadian? He's right in what he's saying, but they refuse to see it. He's also right about what's happening at the borders. Because the fentanyl, the drugs, the crime, the illegal people coming in, he's right in what he's saying. And if we can't deal with that, if we can't secure our borders, and if we can't protect our borders and protect our own citizens, isn't he right to protect his country? The US, the church, gets so much money in the US especially, they get so much money so that they can help people and help them to get homes and accommodation and houses and all that. That's why they're opposing it. They're using the Bible to get the money. It's ridiculous, and people like me will go to the church, ask the church for help. I wrote to so many places in America, here in Canada. They won't give me and my mom a penny. Not one penny. Who's benefiting from that? The church is benefiting. They're getting the millions. Even Pope Francis said it. He said the church is not here to be a place where it's about the money. Because he knows what the priests are doing. He knows. The people are suffering and the priests are getting rich and fat. That's what's happening. All the stress I went under, all the pressure, all this, it was all from sitting at home doing sedentary work, having people shout at me. Your body retains the fat when you're under that much pressure and when you're eating processed foods, because you can't afford to buy the healthy foods. You can't afford to buy the fresh fruit and the fresh vegetables. So you're buying processed foods and you're eating it. TV dinners. It's happening. And all the messages that people send me, oh, you'll never get back onto the property market. That's all. They're feeding it into you. They're feeding it into you. Who says I'll never get back onto the property market? I had a starter place there. It was a starter place. I'm going to get onto the property market. And if I can't do it here, it's going to be somewhere else. Who says I can't do it? Who says I have to go and rent a room in a house? Because they're coordinating it to keep the people at the top in the same positions. That's why revolts happen. That's why the MPs revolted against Justin Trudeau. Because people have told me, he's just a puppet. He's actually good. It's all the people around him. So, I can't vote for somebody like that. What's happening in Zimbabwe? So when the army gets tired of Mnangagwa, when Chiwenga gets tired of Mnangagwa, then he'll get him to step down and he'll put his next person in place. That's how the communists work. And if Donald Trump decides not to support World Health Organization, World Bank, all these things, the communist values are going to be implemented in the countries. And they are the ones that are going to win. And you're going to have what's happening in Canada happening all over the world. You're going to have Russia saying that we saved the world when they didn't. You're going to have unprovoked attacks like me sitting at my desk doing my work and some idiot coming up to me and saying to my manager, my religion is just as important as hers. When I haven't even spoken to them, I don't even know them. That's what's going to happen, and it's happening here in Canada. You're going to have policemen being run over and then people sitting and crying saying, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do it, and getting off, not going to jail. If Sirhan had shot Robert Kennedy now, he wouldn't go to jail. He'd go home to his people and celebrate. They'd have a big party for him to say thank you because you killed that guy, that Robert Kennedy, who was standing up for values that are against our religion. And he said it himself. He said it himself many times. I want to go home and celebrate with my people. So, people are making choices. This is not just about me. It's about the end of civilized society. Because Justin Trudeau is going there to say we're remembering the Holocaust. What's happening on our streets here? What's happening? Who's picking up stones and throwing it at him when he goes to the mosque? Is it me? Is it the Hindus? Wake up. I don't care if you hate me. Wake up. Wake up. This is not a joke. People don't start coming back to Christ and start thinking about what's happening in this world. It's finished. It's finished. And standing up against Trump because he's doing right by America, that's a load of bollocks. It's a load of rubbish. Wake up.